Hey guys, Mike the Cop, and someone sent me last week a video of the rapper PLIES. And at first I was wondering why someone who's a rapper would name themselves after a ballet move, but then I realized he didn't. It was just me not knowing who he was. Either way, he asked for cops to help him understand something, and he sort of like poses this question. So let's take a look.
I got you. Yeah, I will defend my brothers. I will defend the weak. I will pursue and fight evil so others may sleep. I am the sheepdog, protecting the night. Wolf hunters unite. Bring it on. It's time to fight.
As I mentioned last week, someone, my BFF, or my mortal enemy, Officer Daniels, the world may never know, made me aware of this video by PLIES on Instagram, in which he is explaining / posing this question. He opens it up asking if any cops are watching to help him understand something. So rather than me trying to go through detail of what that was exactly, just watch it.
To any officer who may see this video, help me understand one thing. It just came across my phone, the Waffle House killer that y'all just arrested him, brought him into custody. Y'all knew before y'all went looking for him, he hadn't already killed 4 people. Y'all knew y'all was going to look for a murderer. According to sources, he still was supposed to have a gun on him. No different than the Parkland shooter. When y'all went looking for him, y'all already knew he hadn't killed people. Explain to me how y'all continue to find ways to rationalize with them, to compromise with them, and bring them into custody unharmed, unscathed. You ain't shot them, you ain't pistol whipped them, you ain't hit them with the billy club, nothing. But y'all can't figure out how to bring all these unarmed teens that y'all killing around the country into justice unharmed, unscathed. Y'all ain't getting no calls. They no killers. But they become your target practice. Like my grandma told me a long time ago, I may be some dumb, but I goddamn sure ain't plumb dumb.
In my response, I offered a couple of things in my comment on Instagram. First was that I would make a video last week helping him understand. And about that, I lied because I'm making it this week. So, my bad. Secondly, I invited him to actually come to Detroit and sit down and talk with me about it. And that invitation remains open from this point forward. Anytime you're in town, man, and you want to come sit down, talk, I'll meet you, and we'll just talk about all these issues. I'm completely open to that. At the time of this recording, I have received no response from PLIES, but I did receive a few comment responses to me offering those things. Understand what? That y'all effing racist? Why does he need to come have a chat though? Why not comment why officers keep killing unarmed men and women, attacking and choking people who are already detained, shooting and killing people who are running away, which means their backs are turned? Well, thank you for that. Therefore causing no immediate threat to you. They had no answers! Because they're really being fans instead of really wanting to talk about it. Core publicity. That's all. Explain like the man asked. You asking for a sit-down when a simple reply would have done it. Kind of like you replied on the post. Seems to me you're trying to chase clout, trying to make a video and all SMH, still trying to come out on top of blacks. Come out on top off of blacks.
Okay.
Well, not all cops are the same as you, but a lot of them are still going to act out in the wrong way and make you or any other cop that knows what to do in a situation where they have to detain someone or anything else look bad. Yes, in every profession there are people who will make other people in their profession look bad. It's a fact of humanity. Moving on, and to address the tone of the comments, I am not a racist. I even have a video to prove it. Okay, so PLIES seems to be asking one thing. He never really comes out and actually asks a question. He asks for cops to help him understand something, and then he just sort of describes it, obviously. So if I could rephrase it into one thing is, why are you killing unarmed teenagers all the time, but you don't kill other people who have committed crimes all the time? He doesn't ever really directly bring up race, but that seems to be the underlying factor. And he gives this quote from his grandma, all indicators to me on the receiving end of this video trying to understand what he's looking to understand is that these unarmed teens are black and the Waffle House killer is white. And so when you compare white killers versus black killers, cops want to kill the black killers, but don't want to kill the white killers, I think. And he wants to understand why that is. Well, first of all, I reject the entire premise. You're comparing things that are not to be compared or not being compared in a fair way. But I'm going to still try, despite the fact that Google is actually a great resource. I will oblige you, and I want to help you understand what is going on here. Let's break it down into 3 things. 1, police killings in general. 2, the police killings of unarmed teens. And 3, race as any form of an issue in those things. And if we can articulate some objective facts about those things, maybe that will help you understand. I'll also try to give you some shades of understanding on the unarmed aspect of things. Let's get going. Every time someone is arrested, they are booked in on those charges and a code is applied. It's called a UCR. And that code identifies what crime or crimes they are being charged with, and the FBI receives all that data and compiles it. And the most accurate and comprehensive data we have right now, I used 2015 because there's only partial things put up on the website for 2016 and 2017 so far. So I wanted to compare, apples to apples as far as the data goes in the same year. So 2015 it is. And in that year, 10,797,088 arrests were made. That's a big number. It's actually smaller than I thought it was, but nonetheless. For violent crimes, now we're talking murder and non-negligent manslaughter, rape, aggravated assault. So there's all kinds of crimes against people that involve violence. And out of those crimes, 1.7 million reported, 505,681 arrests were made. So officers came in contact and arrested over 500,000 people for a violent crime. Now, keep in mind that you don't just show up for your cop job and your boss doesn't say, all right, Jimmy, you need to go out and arrest 3 people for murder today. John, I want you to go ahead and pick up the aggravated assault people. And it doesn't work that way. People call the police, 911, or they call a non-emergency line, or they call dispatch and someone is sent to their house, or they walk into the police department and they report a crime. Very, very rarely is a cop going to just roll up on a murder in progress. Very, very rarely are they just going to be walking around the corner and then, oh, look, someone's being raped. It doesn't typically work that way. So the cops are not deciding what they're going to go arrest people for. The cops are responding to what people are reporting. In other words, not only do police not have a choice in what crimes people commit, they also don't have a choice in what race the offenders are. That same year, 2015, the Washington Post, someone who is certainly not pro-cop as a reporting agency, shows 995 people killed by the police. This means, even with rounding up, that only 0.002% of violent criminals, when compared to the number of people arrested, are killed when they encounter the police. 0.002. Now, when you factor in age, Mr. Plies, if I may call you Mr. Plies, because you are concerned about teens in your video, we look at only 18 teens, and I don't say only because I take it lightly. I'm just saying comparatively with the numbers, it's 18 teenagers shot and killed by the police in 2015, which means that when compared to the number of violent offenders arrested, you're dealing with 0.00008%. The number of teens compared to the number of violent offenders that were killed is staggeringly almost non-existent when you're looking at the numbers objectively. I'm not talking about the passion or the heartbreak involved when a teenager has chosen paths that bring them into those type of encounters. I'm not talking about the pain that a mother or father or another loved one experiences when anyone is lost. That's not what I'm talking about. We got to take a step back and look at the facts. Now, I couldn't find how many of those teens were unarmed, compared to everybody else, but it was a total of 94 unarmed people that were shot and killed by the police in that same year, bringing it to 0.0002% of all, in comparison to all the violent arrests. What's the point of all those numbers? Well, the point is that the number of people shot and killed by the police, and we haven't even talked about the percentage of that is clearly justified versus debatable versus convicted as not being justified. We're going to leave that alone for now. But just that number compared to the number of arrests is unimaginably low. It means that 99.998% of all people arrested for violent crimes are arrested without being shot and killed. I mean, that's the conclusion to that. That's what follows from looking at the numbers. While some people may look at police shootings, which believe me, cops would love to see that number lowered because it drastically impacts their life and the life of those that care about them too. I mean, it's not easy to be put through the ringer and under the microscope for a life or death decision. Police don't want to kill anybody either, but given the number of times that it has happened, it's still staggeringly unlikely that anyone is going to be killed by the police when compared to even those that are arrested. Now, if you take all of the contacts with law enforcement, all of them, we're talking in the tens or hundreds of millions, possibly into the billion plus a year. And then you look at those numbers, the odds of being shot and killed by the police are statistically non-existent. It's the odds of it are that it's not going to happen. And the vast majority of cops are doing their job just fine. We're going to cover a little bit more about the numbers in a second, but I want to sort of talk about this idea of being unarmed. It doesn't mean that you're not undeadly. Whether it's in the moment you're attacking the officer or you're even trying to reach for a weapon of the officer. I would encourage you to look up the times where officers have been killed with their own weapon after a physical struggle that escalated to a point to where the offender grabbed the officer's weapon and then discharged it on the officer. So just because they're unarmed doesn't make them any less potentially dangerous, depending on the circumstances. So it's not as easy to just say, well, they were unarmed. Okay? We see situations where people are unarmed and they're trying to do suicide by cop. And so the actions that they take are to indicate to the police that they are armed. We saw that recently in New York, where that guy was carrying around that piece of metal, I believe it was a shower head, and he pointed it and stood in a stance. People even called the police believing that it was a gun. You can check out that video up here. It'll pop up on a card. But he's going to count as a statistic of an unarmed person. Yet, he purposely was trying to appear armed. When we talk about how come you're killing unarmed teens, first of all, do you know how many there were? Do you know the circumstances of those? And do you know the outcome of all of them? You see, Mr. Plies, perception is not reality. Perception is perception. Mr. Plies, while teen deaths certainly are tragic and something we need to understand the underlying cause of it, which could be a lack of a positive male influence, positive social economic structures, an understanding of how those work. There's all sorts of things that we can talk about. It's not really a problem in terms of the police seeking out unarmed teens to hunt down and to be incapable of de-escalating or relating to them in a way or handling them in such a way that they come into custody without deadly force. The numbers don't bear that out. The numbers bear out that most teens, even who have committed violent crimes, are taken into custody with absolutely no problem. Okay, I don't know how the underpaid producer is going to drop this video in, but here I am after I made the other video. But I had this conversation with Officer Daniels talking about the fact that I was making this video, and he reminded me of a great point to make to help in understanding something like this, is that you can't compare individual situations, for example, like on a traffic stop where the officer is engaging a suspect or a subject who is going to confront him with force, compared to something like the Waffle House guy that he conducted his act of violence and then was on the run, and then now you know about that threat. So you have the unknown or in the moment versus the known threat, where now you've got a whole team of cops that are seeking someone, and when they encounter them, that person may give up. So it's a little bit different, and the two really can't be compared. They're different situations. So I hope that helps clarify why the Waffle House killer is unharmed and someone else may be harmed. Okay, back to the regular video. You, sir, by inserting race into this, need to then take a look at these numbers that I will give you when it comes to considering the number of people murdered where race is concerned. Same year, 2015, there were 2,664 black victims of murder in a situation where there was a single victim and a single offender. 2,380 of them were killed by another black person, most of whom were male. What if the tables were turned, Mr. Plies, and I had a video where I was asking for black people, because you use the term all y'all, like all cops are just all the same. And what if I said, can any black person tell me and help me understand why all y'all are killing each other? Not sure how well that would be received. I've never really thought about doing a video like that. But when I think about how you're posing your question and hopefully being somewhat sincere and seeking to understand, do you see how when the situation is turned from a different perspective, why that maybe could give you some pause to think about this from another angle? All of these numbers, they don't lie. You see, sir, I don't have a problem with the color of your skin. I don't have a preference for the color of mine. I'm not saying that there aren't differences. I'm not saying that there are not difficulties still in areas of our lives and culture that don't need to be addressed and don't need to be overcome and don't need to be honestly talked about. But what I am saying is that to lump all police officers into one category who somehow, because they're racist, are seeking out unarmed teens to kill is absolutely absurd. Feel free to stop by anytime. Heck, I'll even take a free plane ticket. I'll fly coach. Anywhere you want me to, bring me out, we'll sit down, we'll have a conversation. We can record it, we can talk through, and I would love to be able to have that kind of dialogue with you. So if that ever happens, great. If not, I've said my piece for now. Good day.